All right, welcome to this morning's edition of What's Working Now. This is a whole podcast. If you've been with us for the last couple of weeks, this is a whole podcast that is designed to help uncover what churches are doing in the form of technology and marketing to kind of help spread the gospel and help spread it to other places. Churches in a lot of ways are using technology and sometimes for the first time. And so what we wanted to do with this podcast was bring people on that have different expertise or experience in different areas that can help us understand how we can use technology and how we can use marketing just a little bit better. So today who I have is Colton McDaniel, who is the preacher at a church not in Tulsa. I made the mistake of saying earlier that you were from Tulsa. Where are you actually located? Because I want to actually get the right geographic spot. We're looking at latitude and longitude here. So make sure.
I'll make sure to look that up here real quick.
And they're going to be checking you too. They'll bust you on it.
So Owasso, Oklahoma, which is just north of Tulsa.
Okay.
And been there since October with the Stone Canyon Church of Christ.
Okay, Stone Canyon. Where were you at before that? Because you mentioned before we started recording this that you kind of bounced around all over the place. So where were you at before that? If you've only been here in October, you've obviously been preaching a little longer than that.
So for 4 years before that, I was working with my dad, actually, and we helped start a church in Springfield, Illinois. And then just before that was in the training program in Ronders, Arkansas with Warren King.
Okay. Man, you really have been around. You didn't tell me about Illinois. I knew your dad was a preacher, but I don't think I've ever met him either. I was talking to somebody the other day when I mentioned that I was going to be interviewing you today, he said, "Oh yeah, I know his dad, Ken McDaniel." And he said, and I quote, "Ken is an evangelistic powerhouse." That's what I heard. So he said he's really big in personal evangelism. Obviously, if you're working with him in Illinois, you probably picked up on a lot of that too. Did you use any type of technology when you were there, or were you just knocking doors and trying to get people?
Absolutely. We were doing all sorts. We had such an interesting group as far as the evangelistic methods that were effective in Springfield, because there were some people that they were reached by door knocking, some people just by flyers, some people that were through Meetup, some people that were through Facebook. And so it was kind of a conglomerate. There was no just one method that worked perfectly, but all methods together worked very well.
Yeah. Probably get one person from this way, one person that way. It is interesting to see what people respond to. We don't at Diakonos, we don't deal too much with direct mail campaigns, although we have had people that have asked us, how would you handle a direct mail campaign? And those I know are super expensive. I think it's something like $5,000 to $10,000 if you want to, canvass an entire neighborhood, depending on how big it is. But our
direct mail campaign was more of foot traffic. So
you were on your rollerblades going up and down the streets?
What's that?
You can't deliver flyers for churches unless you're on rollerblades. That's the official vehicle of it. Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
There you go. See? Or skateboard if you're super trendy. Yeah, that's man, was it a new work that you started there, or was it kind of an established work that you were just going up to help out, or?
No, brand new. As far as we were aware, there had not been a conservative work there since the 70s. So.
Okay. Wow, man. So you didn't have anybody to really work with. Did you move there with anybody, or was it just 100% just you and Dad? Wow. How big did that church get over time, if you don't mind me asking?
So it is now to a point that it's consistently there's about 20 people that come on any given Sunday.
That's pretty good.
And so about 15 members. So.
Wow. Yeah. How long has your dad been up there? Is he still up there working, or?
Since we got started there right at the same time, he's still there. So coming up on 5 years now.
Wow, man, that's a lot. I respect anybody that can go into an area that's brand new territory and can set up shop, and especially in today's world where people almost have an antagonistic viewpoint towards the church, or they view it as something that's kind of their culture, like they're raised Methodist, they're going to die Methodist kind of thing. So anybody that can go up and do evangelism, especially and of course I'm in Texas, so I can say that, but especially up north, I mean, that is definitely a feat. So my hat's off to both of you guys.
Well, we're very grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Now, from what I've heard, your brother is a preacher too. Is that accurate, or is?
Yes.
Okay. Is he?
He's in the St. Louis area, and so just west of St. Louis at the Westlake Church of Christ. So we've actually been working together through all this on live. So me and my brother have been working real close together here lately.
That's right. I have seen videos of both of you going together, and I knew it was your brother, but the first couple minutes of the first one I watched, I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but it's eerie how similar they look. And I think y'all laugh similar, so when you laughed, it was kind of like, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, both you guys know your stuff, that's for sure. And I know you have connections with other people. You mentioned earlier that you know some of the people at Appian Media. I think, you said you're related by marriage to some of the guys that work over there.
Not related by marriage myself,
Okay.
but definitely our similar friends that are married into the family, I guess you could
Okay.
say.
Yeah, I'm the worst with genealogy. I don't even know my own family tree, so trying to splice together other people's is not good. But you also went to FC, which is we have some common friends there. You mentioned that you know Andrew Dow, or that you said actually you were roommates with him, which I know Andrew Dow, and I love Andrew Dow to death. His I've known him for many years when I was down in Nacogdoches, East Texas area. His dad preached in Huntington, so Andrew's a really good dude. Solid Bible student, about as solid as they come.
Absolutely.
He's not here, so I can't make fun of him. If you were here, I would probably say something, about him.
I'd make fun of him anyway. But.
Yeah, well, see, you can do that if you want to do it because y'all are roommates. That's totally cool. But I'll leave that to you to do. But it's interesting, and we haven't really said this in either of the other podcasts, but it's interesting how many connections you have sometimes with people in the church. Because I don't think I'd ever met you outside of a month ago. Somebody had recommended that I get to talk to you about how to do Facebook Live. And that's actually how I found you. Is I think I friended you on Facebook, and I saw you doing a video on Facebook Live. And as I told you beforehand, we've had several people message the page and say, how much we appreciate us doing that. And I always have to respond, it's not us that's doing it, it's Colton that does it. You're the one that knows your stuff. And that's why I really wanted to have you on, is because I wanted to talk about how churches can do that right now. This is going to go out probably in a couple weeks, so I don't know what it's going to look like, the landscape is going to look like at that point. But right now, as we record this, we are knee-deep in coronavirus, and several churches have been in that for a long period of time. And most churches, it's kind of like watching a baby deer walk for the first time. And I'm putting myself in this group as well. We're all kind of trying to find our footing. I think we've changed how we live stream our services probably 3 or 4 times, just because the first week it was super grainy. The second week the audio was off. And a lot of preachers are not just live streaming their services, but they're trying to engage with their congregation in other ways, such as, trying to, do classes during the week or do short snippets. And the one thing that I think all of this has done, and I talked about this with Shane Millard when I interviewed him, the one thing all of this has done is awaken us all to the possibilities of what we can do with technology. And none of this is intended to be a replacement. Nobody's going to be live streaming their services exclusively. At least I hope they're not, when this is all over. But there's nothing stopping people from still live streaming services, and the reach and the ways that we can, better present ourselves to the community. I think there's a lot of possibilities there. And I know that just in the video that I watched from you and the tips that you gave, you've already helped me a lot. So I appreciate, number one, you doing that video and sharing it, because I know it's helped out a lot of people. But let me just ask you real quick, as we kind of get into this, why is it that you decided that you want to do Facebook Live in the first place? Because as far as I know, I think you've been doing it probably a little bit before the whole coronavirus thing started in the first place. Why is it that you see that as a good medium to reach people? Because a lot of people see it's kind of one of those things that, you can do, but it's not necessary. But I think you see it as pretty valuable.
So I had actually, before all the things with the coronavirus had happened, I was kind of building up some stuff at Owasso that I hadn't really gotten the chance to get into the live side of it yet. But right. I had done basically, which is what live is kind of extemporaneous video work.
Right.
I'd kind of done that earlier whenever I was in Springfield, and there are several videos that are still there that basically just 1.5 to 3 minute videos that you're basically, to use the term you had used earlier, you're basically riffing. And you're just talking about the Bible and presenting what the scriptures say, and sometimes it's going to be off the top of your head, and especially when you're going live, it definitely is going to be off the top of your head. So I'd had that video experience before, and I had been looking toward doing the live videos for a long time. But this is that thing that it just kicked me in the pants to go ahead and get started with it. Yeah. And so that's kind of the history of where I had been, and that absolutely I believe that this is valuable and perhaps even to some extent necessary to connect with people.
Right.
And the reason for that, actually, whenever I was working through my degree in communication, this was my senior project, was talking about how we can use video for evangelism. And blending those things together in order to show this is how we can reach people today.
Right.
And proof of concept that we were able to see how valuable at least online work was with our work in Springfield. That from the time that we started in our permanent church building, in the first opening service was in April of last year, actually 2 years ago now. And so 2 years ago this month, and from that time on to the end of the year, a small church of about 12 or 15 at that time, small church, and we were able to have 90 visitors walk in the door just through Facebook.
Yeah. Is that just through Facebook video?
Or excuse me, 90 visitors walk in the door. About 75% of those, the way the statistics ran, about 75% of those were just through Facebook.
Yeah. And
so that kind of worked as a proof of concept for me of how important it is to get online, but then as well to utilize this video because it's so much more connecting than radio of the past, newspaper clippings of the past. It's so much more personal to be able to talk to people that are right there in front of you in a sense. But at the very least that they are being able to connect with everything you're saying, see your facial expressions, your micro expressions, even that they hear your tone of voice, they understand where you're coming from just a little bit better through that medium of video. And live certainly has that aspect of that this is on the fly. And so we're working through this together. So it almost works as like kind of a Bible class almost. That you're able to make those same connections, though the unfortunate on my side is I don't get to see their reactions.
Yeah, that's the downer. It's funny you mentioned that because we're at Hillside right now. We're going through a class on Leviticus, and I had planned, like most preachers, you kind of plan your stuff out in advance. I knew we were going to be talking about Leviticus, 6 months ago, but I'd always kind of anticipated being able to read the audience and say, okay, we need to spend a little bit more time on this feast, or people are falling asleep, so let's try to wrap up the main point, move on to something, next. But right now, the way that we're doing because of Facebook Live, all you see is that little number of how many people are there, and then you have a video where you're talking to yourself. And I don't know if there's many more things awkward than sitting in a room by yourself talking about Leviticus to a bunch of virtual people. It's just it is very odd, but it's like you said, it's kind of a necessity right now. I like what you said about how valuable Facebook Live is, and especially the behind the scenes thing, because I know there's a trend just in the regular world. There's a trend right now amongst celebrities and people that are influencers that they want to be able to control their own narrative. You have PR agents, you have publicists, and these people work great in formal categories where you're trying to, drum up advertising for certain events. But in a lot of ways, celebrities want to be able to, and people want to be able to reach their audience directly. And so you see, like, for instance, authors that will do Facebook Lives where they're doing AMAs, Ask Me Anything. People will comment and say, what's your average day look like? What do you eat for breakfast? And at the very least, what you get is a glimpse into who they actually are. And I think that's a trend in the way that the world is coming right now, because people want, just in the business world, they want to see brands that they can identify with. They want to see the real face behind people. When you think, and I don't know why this brand just popped into my mind, but when you think Kellogg, you don't want to see Kellogg. You want to see the people. You want to see, and you see advertising going the direction of, showing the factory workers and what goes into the preparation of cereal and the people in the community, rather than the benefits necessarily about the cereal, which is a really weird segue when we're talking about church stuff. But anyways, people are trending towards wanting to see the reality of people. And I think when it comes to churches, churches want to attract people. They want to be able to reach people with the gospel, but there's a lot of barriers there. People don't know what the church is teaching. And let's face it, a lot of churches have hidden agendas. Some of them are, wanting money. Some of them are, just wanting numbers, and not all of them, obviously. And when I say them, I mean primarily in the denominational world. But so a lot of people are kind of wary of churches in the first place. And the whole Catholic scandals that have been happening the last 10, 15 years, they're very wary of religion. Let's just say that. So the more you can put a face with who you are, I think it helps bridge that gap with people. And
that's really a benefit. And that's really a benefit of doing it live, is if someone gets on there that they have no idea what the church is about, or they have misconceptions about the church, they can go ahead and ask a question. And and that was something that me and my dad had to kind of work through and grapple with, of how to deal with what we typically online call trolls.
Yeah.
How to deal with those people that they're derailing what you're talking about sometimes.
Right.
Now, if they're being just blatantly crude, that's something we just go ahead and block. We don't even mess with that. But when you're talking about live and someone just comes with a genuine question, or maybe even there's some hidden motives behind that, but it's a good question,
right,
I feel free to just go ahead and answer that question to the best of my ability at the time. Of course, sometimes the answer is I don't know if you're going live, but it's something we can come back to. And that's in fact why my brother and I have been doing on every Thursday. We've been going live as a live Q&A.
Right.
Is that anytime someone has a question and we don't know the answer to it immediately, we can jot that down and we can come back to it on Thursday.
Right.
Or if there's a question that comes up on the live feed, we always try to say live questions get preference.
Right.
And so the live questions, we go ahead and answer to the best of our ability right then. But even if we don't get to those questions, we have that for a later time that we can come back to those things. But that makes it so that people understand, and this is perhaps a I don't want to say failing, but an unfortunate reality is that in past generations, this is at least how the generation just after me, so I would be a millennial, but the generation just after me, one of the primary things that they are concerned with the church about is that they have this concern that the church is not able to answer their doubts and concerns.
Right.
That they have kept themselves away from that. Live video it forces us to answer questions because it forces us to get out of our comfort zone already, but then it forces us to address people where they are instead of just thinking that we know where they're at and then trying to answer those concerns when really that's not the concern they have at all, but they can actually tell you, this is what is bothering me. And I need you to help clear up that doubt in my mind.
Right. You always want to speak to the people. You always want to speak directly to what their concerns are. Otherwise, you just put up a straw man and you say, this is what the world believes, when in reality, that's not what they believe at all. In a lot of ways, I think Facebook Live is kind of the natural successor to, radio programs that used to have in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, I remember growing up and every Sunday morning before services, we'd listen to our preacher who would do a radio program. And I think at some point he even did a call-in radio program. And the questions that he would get sometimes are just so off the wall. But for every one of those questions, you'd have 10 people that would call in and they would say, my preacher says this, what do you say? Or my pastor says this, what do you say? Or I've been struggling with, this passage, or, the famous one, why don't you guys have instrumental music? Why don't you guys ever have that? That's what we care about. Why don't you have that? So it allows, as you mentioned, a forum that you can address those concepts in real time. I think Facebook Live has the benefit of also keeping that stored. If you miss a radio program, unless you put your little cassette thing in and you click it and you press record, you can't go back and revisit that conversation. But Facebook Live stores that on your page and people can go back and revisit it. Do you still do live Q&As with members from the community, or is most of your Q&As with members of the church, or what's the average, makeup of that demographic?
From the time that we've been doing it, I would say that most of them are from members of the church, but part of that is that I have not been able yet on our Facebook page to really boost it out to the community using Facebook Boost. I haven't been able to do that just yet. And so the benefit of live is my dad and I went to a Facebook conference whenever we were living in Springfield. And the benefit of live is being able to, it's the only thing that Facebook will give preference to posts that you give to your followers. So I think on average, it's 2 to 11% of your followers will actually see any given post, except with Facebook Live. And that is the real, if you will, the cost benefit of going live instead of even having to boost these posts, is that going live is the only thing that they will feed out to a majority, if not all, of your followers whenever you go, as long as you go for at least 10 minutes. And so our followers right now are primarily Christians.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true in Springfield. In Springfield, I believe it was somewhere around 80%, 80% being the community.
Mm-hmm.
But as we grow our Facebook presence through boosting, we'll be able to see more community viewers on those live videos as well.
Yeah, that's I'm glad you brought that up about Facebook's reach, because Facebook has, to my understanding, has their number one goal is time on platform. The more they can keep people on the platform, the more money they make, and so they're going to inherently promote content that keeps people on there, such as Facebook Live. Especially when you consider their main competitors are things like YouTube. They want to make sure that people are here and not YouTube, which is at its core a social platform. That's what YouTube essentially is. But you're right. I mean, when you have a Facebook Live, it presents higher engagements. It presents a more engaged profile or page, whoever is doing the live feeding. But it also just has, as you mentioned, it has a wider reach. It just naturally does. Your statistics were actually higher than mine. I had heard it was something like 2 to 6%. So that means, if your church has got somewhere around 1,000 people, of course, math would fail me right now, but you're maybe looking at 20 to 60 people that are able to see any given post. And that's just people that the post goes on their newsfeed. That doesn't account for people that stop and actually look at it. But you're right. Facebook Live is just about one of the best things you can do. Even just native videos. If you create a video and then upload it to that, even that has more of a reach, I think, than just regular image posts do. But yeah, that's interesting.
Go back and look at our statistics in Springfield,
mm-hmm.
but even native video posts lacked significantly in comparison, of course, to those live videos. But yeah, native videos do definitely have a good reach because people like seeing something. The only recommendation I would add to native videos is being able to put subtitles at the bottom.
Yeah.
Because some people, when they go across a video, they're not going to click on it. They're just going to read it.
Yeah.
And so that's maybe an advantage of doing the native video, is being able to do those kind of things.
Yeah. I think there's a stat somewhere that says something like 80% of all Facebook videos are viewed with the sound off.
Right.
And it's you can do captions. You can do captions if you want to. You can do it with native videos. Facebook Live, I think, now has the option where you can click on captions. The problem with that is if you click on the captions, they're not always accurate. And I remember it was Mark Zuckerberg's commencement address that he did at Harvard a few years ago. And this is the founder of Facebook doing a Facebook Live from his alma mater. And the captions were just all over the place. I mean, it was like he would say, I'm glad to be here. And it would say something like, I like to eat tacos or something like that. So one thing you can do, you can turn on the auto captions. I know, and I don't know how often y'all use this. We use it at Hillside all the time. We actually set our live videos to Premiere. So it has the reach of a Premiere video, and you can actually upload a caption file to them, and that allows for more accurate things. So that's one of the things you can do, but you're right. I mean, that's a good point to bring up about how if you can have captions, you definitely need them because people will read it more oftentimes than watch it. You mentioned that you mentioned native video creation. Do you engage with YouTube at all, or are you strictly Facebook Live? Because I know YouTube has a live component now also.
So in Springfield, I started on YouTube, and the only downside that I have for YouTube is the followers that I build on YouTube are worldwide.
Right.
But on Facebook, I can target it that I only target my particular region. Right. So this is maybe a stepping stone to the live videos themselves, but the stepping stone has to start, I believe, with that you are building a following around your community.
Right.
And so, for instance, in Springfield, we built about somewhere close to 2,000 followers. And again, it was about a 20-80 split between Christians and non-Christians. And in that 80%, at least I would say the majority of those were in Illinois, but even a large percentage of that was in Springfield specifically. And so whenever we go live, that live video will spread out to all the followers, who would include that vast majority being in the Springfield community. But on YouTube, when you go live, though of course it has the same kind of reach, but it's sending it out to worldwide. Right. And I really want to get people in the door that are in my community. Right. And so that's why I prefer it, even for live videos, I prefer Facebook, because it will send out to the community of Owasso specifically.
Right. Yeah, I think there is. I think there is a benefit to being global, because that's certainly the way that evangelism is trending. You know, you certainly 50 years ago you didn't have the opportunities that we have to reach somebody on the other side of the world. But I think there is. I think it's good that you brought up that there needs to be an emphasis on the local work of the church. And if other people benefit, that's great. And certainly we can can create content with an eye to other people. But I do think putting a primary focus on Facebook as being a local first mentality, I think that's really strong, because if for nothing else, that's the people that you're going to be able to follow up with. You know, if you have a Facebook Live or YouTube videos viewed by somebody overseas, you may be able to have email correspondence with them, but it's very rare you'll be able to get in front of them and talk to them in a one-on-one format. So I think with an eye towards a global audience, but a focus towards the specific, towards the local, I think that's the right approach. Absolutely. So let's ask this question, because I don't want to keep you forever. And I know that you're kind of the guru when it comes to this stuff. And I don't care what you say. I'm going to keep calling you the guru until I find another guru, which will be a long time, because I don't come across too many gurus. Really, all I'm doing at this point in the interview is trying to insert the word guru as many times as possible. But I want to ask you, because I know there's a lot of people that are on Facebook Live for the first time. And as I mentioned earlier, your video you shot helped me out a lot. I made some of the changes. And especially the one that you mentioned, I'm sure you'll bring this up, but about elevating your camera. As we sit right now, my laptop and the place I'm viewing this on is sitting on 6 boxes of visitors cards. So it's elevating it up just enough that the shadows and everything look a little bit better. I'm a pretty ugly person anyways, but I'm a little less ugly in this format. But I know a lot of preachers are preaching from their dining room table. They're preaching from their home office. They're preaching from a place that maybe
this is my home office.
Yeah, and you look great. Might I add, you look great. Yeah, you didn't do any makeup, at least that I know about. A lot of people. We won't touch that. That's going to be some weird areas, but I know a lot of people are living from Facebook, living from really interesting places, kitchen tables, rural areas. So let's say I'm in the market to want to start Facebook Live. I see the use of it. I can see the reach. What are some things that I need to make sure, or the first steps I need to do to kind of get online? Besides, I have a page, church has a page. I know how to get online. What are some tips I need to know before I get into it?
Into Facebook Live in particular?
Right. Specifically with Facebook
Live. So like you said, the big thing that I saw whenever things got started with coronavirus, one of the big things that I saw was laptop on the table. Therefore, you're getting people that you're seeing if there are any bats in the cave, that sort of thing. And so you were getting those shots that were not flattering is the point.
Right.
And so you had that, that was something that I really encouraged, was lift up, use those extra books that are just sitting on the shelf anyway and not doing any good otherwise. And
whatever books laying around at all. There's no way we have that.
No, never. And so I have, in particular, a laptop stand that lifts up the laptop to the specifications that I want. As well, lighting is good. Lighting is helpful for us to be able to not have those, again, deep shadows. I even now, with my glasses, have some shadows that are going on, but not nearly as bad, because I got this light right here next to, and all it is a lamp. It's not anything fancy. It's just a lamp sitting next to my laptop.
Yeah.
And as well, I'm trying to make sure that I don't have this massive bright backlight that's going to be blinding and giving this halo effect at the top.
Right.
And so we want to try to make sure that the lighting is something that, again, is flattering.
While you're talking, I'm looking at my picture and I'm like, yeah, I'm missing that. I've got the deep shadows going, but yeah, no, it's good stuff. I actually have a lamp. Maybe I should turn it on. I didn't even think about that.
But the big thing that I really encourage people to at least spend some amount of money on is audio.
Right.
People can forgive poor video quality. And in fact, this is quality that you're seeing right now on my side is not the quality that I want. I have a DSLR camera, and I'm trying to work out a way that I can use an external camera and plug it in, feed it into my videos so that I use that. And that way I got HD or better quality that I can use for those videos. But people are more willing to forgive video quality.
Right.
And especially since, iPhones and Androids, their camera quality has gotten so good that it's almost indistinguishable. And so there's no problem on that side. People are not forgiving of bad audio.
Right.
So if you have constant buzzing, if you have this ringing sound that's going constantly, or if your audio just sounds distorted, that it sounds so either distant or it sounds groggily, if you will, people are not as forgiving of that, and they're not going to wait and listen there to see if it gets fixed. They're just going to go on to the next video. And that removes them from the message of God that you're trying to present.
Right. Yeah. It makes it, I like the point about audio being, if you're going to spend money on anything, and keep in mind too, you don't have to spend a lot of money. As you mentioned, you can use, for your camera, iPhones and Androids have come a long way. As I told you beforehand, I just got a new iPhone, and it can broadcast in 4K. So you don't have to spend $6,000 on a DSLR. And you certainly don't have to spend that much on a microphone. I've got a Blue Yeti. I know you use something as well. I didn't spend more than $150 on mine, but I guarantee you, even in the 8 months that I've had it, I've already gotten more than my money's worth out of it. And precisely because the audio that comes through the computer is so echoey. It seems like you're kind of talking in a big room. But as you mentioned, it's important to put a good face on it. The video quality, that comes and goes. That can change with your environment. But a good audio can make all the difference in the world. And that should truly be the thing that's most important, not how you look, but what's coming out of your mouth. So I think that's a really important point to bring up.
And something that I had gotten here in this last week, someone had given me a call asking me for advice on something. Do realize that when you go live, especially since more people are going live than ever before in these last few weeks, realize that there's possibly going to be a delay at the beginning of your video going live. Right. Now, we're recording this video right now, and so it'll start right when we want it to start. Right. But to me, the best practice of making it so that your video starts right when you want it to start, the best practice for me has been to use through OBS or some form of video platform that I can feed to that program first, and then it will live stream to Facebook, that I can hit start stream whenever I want it to go. And then it's a lot closer at least. So you're still maybe either going to have that delay, or you're going to have that it jumps ahead of where you're at. But understand that that's just kind of a downside of the idea, but the benefits that you gain from having that live presence of how much it feeds into your audience is totally outweighs any 1 or 2 second delay that you might have at the beginning.
Yeah. I know you can do, I know a lot of people are using countdowns and things like that. We actually use that at Hillside because we set our video scope to premiere at this appointed time. And so we actually have a countdown that starts 5 minutes beforehand, allows people to get on. You're right. You don't really have that with live. You can schedule a live in the same way that you schedule a premiere. So you can schedule it. And if that little announcement that pops up on people's news feeds, if they click the get a reminder, it'll remind them 20 minutes beforehand. But even in that 20 minutes, I mean, people can go off and take a nap. They can make a sandwich. And I've seen that, some people that have either recorded videos or live videos with the graphic popping up beforehand, some people have 10 or 15-minute countdowns. And I don't know your thoughts on that. That just seems like a long time. That just seems almost like too long, and people are going to pop in and pop out. But with live, I know at least in my experience, when somebody comes on live, it shows a notification right then, and you can click right then and go in. So you're right. The lag isn't as much when it comes to Facebook Live when you're going impromptu, but you do need to be mindful of if you're doing anything beforehand. You want to make sure, especially for worship services, you're streaming it. You want to do something that at least captures people in those minutes leading up to it, because for a lot of people, that's where that introductory material comes. Where's our Bible going to be open to? What songs are we going to sing? What's the order of worship? That all information comes in those first few minutes, so people need to be there with it.
Yeah, and I'll say that I don't even really like the fact that I have a countdown screen on Sundays. And the reason for that is just because it's static. Yeah. And whenever people are looking on Facebook, they want something that's got motion going on. Right. And if I had something way too expensive, and I'm not going to do it, but if I had something like the Creative Cloud with After Effects, I could make a slide that actually is in constant motion, a parallax effect that you can have a whole bunch of movement going on. I'd rather have that in order to have a countdown. But again, that may cost money. I'm figuring out a way right now. There's a guy that I'm watching right now that teaches you how to do the same type of kinetic motion effects on PowerPoint as you can on After Effects.
Interesting.
And so I'm going to be toying around with that for a little bit to see if I can get a good intro slide that is in constant motion, that it says welcome or something like that, that people can see the movement of it.
Yeah, I think movement is important. I know you can buy actually those graphics. For instance, I bought one from Igniter Media, just for anybody who's maybe interested. I bought one from Igniter Media for like $15. And it's literally just a graphic that has a 5-minute countdown, but it has those motion type things that you're talking about. Yeah. Igniter is great for a lot of their social media images. You have to obviously sift through, the denominational stuff, and there's a lot of weird things. But there's also a lot of great things, and they have a lot of different countdowns that you can use. But you're right. You need to have something that because the eye is trained to notice movement. So you have to have something that kind of captures people's attention. So I think
Igniter Media was actually the company that inspired me to get into video work.
Really?
They have their quality as far as the video side of it is outstanding.
Right.
Like you said, have to sift through some of the teaching that is an error, but their quality of video is outstanding.
Yeah, they're really good. And I think a membership is like $20 a month for social media images, and they have thousands of them on there, so it's worth checking out if you're interested. Also, Canva. We're going to do a webinar probably next month on how to use Canva. I'll do a probably 30-minute to an hour demonstration on that. But Canva, if you're looking for free resources, is great for that type of stuff too. So I want to ask you too, before we go, because I know we've already gone past our allotted time. But I want to ask you too, real quick, if you've got a moment, where do you see churches going beyond this? Because everybody's going to be streaming during coronavirus. For better or for worse, everyone's going to be streaming. But what applications do you see this post-COVID? Let's say we fast forward 3 years, COVID is got a vaccine, it's in the rearview mirror. What do you see the application for churches and preachers in that world?
So especially with live, like I said, the key aspect of live that is so important is the fact that it connects you to your audience in real time. And that means something to people. It means something that they know that they are actually talking to you right now as you were doing this. In that sense, it becomes like a Bible class. Right. Not as good as a one-on-one Bible class, but it does become like a Bible class in that way. And so it's so important for that reason to do that. But just as a for instance, a guy that I worked with back in Rogers, Arkansas, Warren King, he's a dear friend of mine, and I just called him just to check up on him yesterday and see how he was doing. But he had said, after this is all done, I've decided that I'm going to do 45-minute videos. So 45-minute videos where I'm going to just present how to read the Bible.
Yeah.
And this guy is 65 or older.
Yeah. And
he's decided that he wants to do that. That encourages me so much. And I can joke with him. He's fine with that. That I told him, I said, finally coming into the 21st century, huh? and there's so much of this that after the coronavirus is all said and done, after we're past this has actually in this way done a service for the kingdom, that it's brought people that were unwilling before, that they are now willing to present the gospel in a way that they didn't think was really that important. But now they see how important it is and how much good it can accomplish. I've actually had more Bible studies one-on-one since the coronavirus kicked in than I did even before. And a lot of that is because of online work. And again, live has that personal touch that you want. Right.
We're forced to think about, or maybe we're conditioned to think about evangelism as being, dinner table conversations or door knocking or, flyers for gospel meetings. But it is remarkable. And a lot of people view Facebook as kind of being the thing where you share funny cat memes or grandma's recipes or things. But it is remarkable when you tap into what its capabilities are, just how far you can reach. And I think you're exactly right. I think this time period has forced us all to examine creative ways by which we can share the gospel. And in a lot of ways, things that we probably should have been doing all along. We just didn't realize the capability was there. And so I think that's really strong. People always talk about how, social media, the internet, that's a young person's game. I know of people, you mentioned Warren King. I know of people that are, in their 80s that are are learning Hebrew for the first time via, online Bible classes from somebody in Israel. And it's phenomenal what you can accomplish right now. But you're right. Doing it the right way matters, because how we present the gospel matters. The face that we put on the gospel matters. We mentioned this in another podcast, when Paul says to the Jews, I became as a Jew so that I might win the Jews. That talks about how we present the gospel and meeting people where they are, with hope and with scripture. And, Facebook just allows us another medium to do that. So I think you're spot on with all that. I want to let you have the last word. I know that we've spent time talking about Facebook Live. I know that's your forte because you're the guru after all. Is there anything, one tip that maybe somebody who's jumping in right now, 35 minutes into it, somebody who's jumping in right now, they don't know anything about Facebook Live. Is there any one thing you would tell them that they could take away from it that would, improve their Facebook Live?
You told me that this was going to be the question.
Well, yeah, mention this. They finished. Don't let everyone down. Everyone's 20 minutes waiting for this moment. You've covered quite a bit of ground already.
My encouragement is this. This last Sunday, as our recording this, I emphasize the fact that this is all about the message. The venue in which it is done can be used to be to the glory of God, but focus it all on the message. I've heard many people say that they don't have a face for video. Again, it's all about the message. Let the message speak, and you just be that, as Paul puts it, earthen vessel that it comes through.
That's a great point. I think that's a great way to end on. I appreciate you spending your time with me. I know you're a busy man, but I appreciate you taking time out of your life to talk with us and help everybody. I know there's lots of people that are going to be watching this live. A lot of people are going to be watching it probably weeks and months down the road. So I appreciate Colton. I appreciate you spending time with us. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you.